Can I just start, Brittany? Welcome everyone to the council work meeting. Today is December 5th, 2023. We're in the council chambers, which is on the third floor of the county building. Time is 5:30 p.m. I apologize, I'm a little bit underneath the weather, so I'm going to wear a mask so I don't get anybody else sick. As far as roll call, we have our county attorney, Scott Broadhead, present. As far as councilmen, we have Councilman Thomas, Councilman Strungberg, Councilman Hoffman, Councilman Hamner, Councilman Wardle present. We also have our county manager, Andy Welch, Assistant County Manager, Brittany Lopez, and Nikki from the clerk's office, keeping a recording. We welcome you all being here and thank you for being here. That will bring up our auditor, Alison McCoy, on line item transfers.
All right, council, we have two line item transfers tonight. The first one is from the health department. We'll be transferring money from a vehicle line to an equipment line for some audio-visual equipment at the health department. And then our second one is from the tourism department. We no longer fund the Wendover City the way that we used to, and so we'll be transferring funds from that line over to the promotion line. Any questions on those?
Okay. Is there any questions, council? Sorry, Alison. Is there any questions on the line item transfers? No?
Ty just asked me a question just to make sure. We had talked about in our last budget meeting about a vehicle. These are two separate.
Two separate,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, the one that we discussed last time was for the 2024 budget.
Correct.
And this is for the 2023 budget, so.
Okay. Thank you. Resolution ordinances amending the Tooele County fee schedule. Our county manager, Andy Welch.
So each year, we like to, as part of the budget process, look at our fees. We have made a couple changes to our fee schedule throughout the year, but we've asked all the departments about 6 weeks ago to look at their fees to make sure they're current. We had 4 departments that responded back with some minor changes. The clerk had one change. The Parks and Recreation, they had a few more changes as we're making improvements at Desert Peak. Some of the services that we'll provide will be changing, and so they had a number of changes to the fee schedule. Some of it's just to delete some things out. Others is just to update fees to make sure we're in line with the market. The recorder had a few as well, changes. Then the attorney, Nathan, had some changes for us to add in language on the right-of-way. Is that correct? So those are just a few changes. You'll see that highlighted in red in the document, and there's some strike-throughs as well. But this is just an update that we like to make sure we do each year annually to make sure our fees are up to date as part of the budget process.
Okay. Any questions, council? Comments? Okay. That'll bring us down to establishing salaries of the Tooele County officers for 2024 fiscal year. Alison McCoy.
All right, council, we did present this resolution. Okay. Get it over with. I'm game. Yeah. All right, council, we did present this a couple meetings ago. This is just a listing of the annual salaries of the elected officials for Tooele County. These salaries represent the same merit and COLA increase that all the other employees in the county are getting. And this is a requirement by state code that we do present the salaries each year. Are there any questions on these?
Council, any questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Stay up there. Adopting Tooele County budget for the 2024 fiscal year, Alison McCoy.
All right, council. I'm going to plug in here. Actually, I left one. We are at the end of a 6-month process. And so I just kind of wanted to hit some highlights with you. Before you, you have our 2024 budget. And so I kind of just want to walk through quickly how we got where we're at. So we have compiled the requests that affect 350 plus employees and over 30 departments. When we start this process, we add in our known obligations, which are things like debt payments, compensation, retiree benefits, things that we know about. And then we also forecast, so things like sales tax, property tax, and we compile all that together. And then we start our meetings, which we've been doing since the September timeframe. And I feel like we've had a really good discussion. We've talked through things, you've met with the departments, and this that you have in front of you is a culmination of that work. Within this budget, the general fund appropriation, the fund balance appropriation is $6.6 million. Oh no. So the proposed COLA is 4% or 4.5%, and the merit increase is 3%. The aggregated budget across all funds and all projects that we work on is $175 million. And I'll skip over here to our capital projects. We have $48 million in capital projects planned within our budget and $3.4 million in equipment. Some of the things that we're proud, or that we can be proud of within our budget, is our budget accounts for Phase 2 of Deseret Peak, which is a great project that's coming up. We do have, in our economic development, the ability to pass through funds to some of our community partners through CDBG and also offer small business grants. And we also have the ability to help our community through mental health and Medicaid support services. When we move into 2024, that's when the real work starts. So our budget includes studies for building maintenance for our buildings so that we can stay on top of our projects and we're not playing catch up. It also includes a study for our solid waste and also for our receiving center. We have the large projects at Deseret Peak, our Trails project, and then a new HVAC system for this building. We plan to bring on 6 new employees. We have some new programs for our employees, including tuition reimbursement. And this budget also represents a new thoughtful approach to our budgeting. And not that we haven't done that in the past, but we really asked our departments and to work through a new way of looking at our budget and to bring things a little bit closer in line with a tighter budgeting. And so it might be a little bit bumpy as we move into 2024. We may have to realign our budget, but that's something that we're accustomed to, and that's something that we have over the years tried to be really transparent with the public anyway. But I think that this will be a really exciting time for the county as we get to do some of these big projects and some of these great things. I do need to make a couple of changes from the budget that's been posted. These are minor changes. As you know, we have a new software, and the software doesn't quite mesh. And so there are funds that feed into each other. So for example, we have the municipal service fund that requires a transfer into the general fund. And sometimes we made that change in the municipal service fund, but the transfer didn't match in the general fund. And so I've highlighted the changes that I made. So if you start on page 1, we matched up the aging transfer for $106,600. As I mentioned, we matched the municipal service transfer. I also updated the fund balance appropriation as discussed. If you move to page 15, I've highlighted I've highlighted $725,000 in Parks and Recreation. You'll see that this was already in the tentative budget, but what happened is we inadvertently removed $250,000 for Parks and Recreation grounds maintenance. We had a miscommunication. We thought they only needed $20,000. They need $250,000, and so we've updated that. And then if you'll move to page 30, you can see where we've, again, updated the municipal service allocation. But besides that, everything is in there as we've discussed, and there's no other changes. And I think we have some great things in store. And I just want to thank the council for the discussions that we've had and the great work that's been done on this budget. I want to thank the departments for their patience with our department and for the hard work that they've put in. I've said this 100 times, but I really do wish the public could see the internal workings that happen with the departments, because they are very concerned about making sure that they spend public dollars appropriately. They work very hard on their budgets. They're conscientious with their budgets. And I'm grateful to have the relationship that I do with the departments, because I'm very proud of the work that they do. And lastly, I need to thank my staff. There's nothing like changing software in June and then moving straight into the budget process. And my staff's worked incredibly hard to still manage our daily work as well as manage this budget process. And I'm very proud of Carrie, Marie, and Aspen for all their hard work. So with that, I'll take any questions.
You brought a new term, beautification to PowerPoint. Thank you. Looks very good. And thank you for your diligence and your detail, your sense of detail, and to your staff. I know you don't do it alone, but and to all the employees, because they all jumped in. So thank you. Scott?
You know, I think that as we go through budget, we've talked about this often, it's a hard process, and this budget is one of the best budgets I've ever been part of. I think that, I mean, the ability to look at the amount of projects that are being undertaken, and we've talked about this for 3 years as a value of our council. If we're going to budget, we need to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think to all the electeds and the county staff and Andy and his departments, thank you guys. Thank you for proposing. Thank you for giving us reasons to go forward. Thank you for working with us through this process, and we look forward to seeing the continued investment in our citizenry through this budget, and I think it's just tremendous. So we appreciate that.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? The chair recognizes Councilman Hoffman.
Sorry, my mic was off. Scott Wardle and I were at the RAH meeting last week and met with the group called 47G, and we've talked about joining them, and I don't think we've budgeted that. They've asked for $10,000 for us to join that, and if we're gonna move forward with this or any development or changes out at the Wendover Airport, they would be a good group for us to join, so we may wanna add $10,000 into the budget for
Okay.
them for next year.
In between meetings, I can find an appropriate spot for that, if you'd like.
47G, and it's a membership to that group, is a consortium of defense and aerospace companies that work to develop economic development projects within areas such as airports. They work with Davis County, Weber County, other counties throughout the state, some of our biggest employers, and they had some exciting ideas to look at in the redevelopment of the Wendover Airport along with RAH. And so.
Right, if we don't get the RAH, then there's other
There's
ideas.
still this development opportunity with aircraft out there, so.
And some of their group members have been talking about how that could be used and utilized and things like that, so.
Okay.
Thank you for
I don't know how the
clarifying.
rest of the council feels about that, but
Thank you for clarifying that, Councilman Wardle. I thought it was a rap group or something.
So you, more of an economic development type than a tourism type?
It is.
Okay.
Although
Thank
it will transfer into tourism also, if
Okay.
we receive RAH or chosen as RAH's preferred site. But I think that when we talk about economic development, not only at the Tooele Valley Airport, and we see that airport plan moving forward, the connection of the water system for them to develop around the sewer system that they're pursuing. And then the exciting part was, and Ty, I don't want to share too much because there's some there, but when they came out and toured and started to see the benefits of the runways that we have out in Wendover, their ability to develop and work with aircraft with certain companies is absolutely tremendous. And we'd love to see that investment in that.
Very good.
for the members of the public that don't know what RAH is, that's the Reno Air Race Association. They got kicked out of Reno, and they're looking for new locations. And we're one of the 6.
So the funding comes out of, so where would the funding come out? Some out of tourism, some out of general fund? Where does, for this, where are you proposing this to come out of the funding?
I think she's gonna look at that in between meetings and make a
We'll probably
recommendation.
move it out of the general fund, I would think.
So as we talk about that, so now we're talking about adding 10,000. Is this the cutoff meeting? I thought this is the last time we talked budget this year.
Yes, so we'll take an amendment, or I'll have you make an amendment on top of what I handed you tonight.
And then see that in our last meeting in December?
No, I'll just have you make an amendment tonight to what you have here.
Okay.
So,
On the motion tonight in business meeting. Okay? Moving forward, adjusting the Tooele County budget of 2023.
all right,
Alison?
council, I have a couple of budget adjustments for you tonight. The first one is From the council's budget, this is for vehicle maintenance for $3,100. The next one that we have is from the manager's office for travel and training for $2,000. The next one that we have is from the tourism fund for Country Fan Fest for $100,000. And then the next ones that we have are from the health department. The first one is for vaccinations for COVID for $210,000. That one does have a revenue source associated with it. We also have one for $1,500 for the swimming pool inspections that also has a revenue source with it. And then finally, one for $2,500 with a grant associated with it. Any questions on any of those?
Council?
Council, as you approve that budget tonight, that will constitute the final budget for 2023. And I do want to say, it also constitutes the final Tyler account numbers that we've transitioned to for the year. So there were no changes in the budgets that were allotted to that you allotted to the accounts. We just did what we call a crosswalk between the Cassell account numbers and the Tyler account numbers. So I just want to make that clear that that will constitute the final budget also with those Tyler account numbers, so.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm done.
That will bring us up to adopting the revised personnel policy manual. Andy Welch.
Back up one. Thank you, Council. As you remember, we've been discussing the personnel policy for quite some time. It says revised personnel policy. We're really revising the old one completely out of existence because we started with a red line version of that and it was bleeding too much. And so we honestly just started from scratch. And so this is a policy that we started almost 2 years ago now working on. And we had some earlier discussion earlier this year to get some policy guidance from you to make sure that we were going down the right track. We sent out the policy to the department heads earlier. They responded back. We provided some comments back to all of those questions, I think accounting for about 50 pages that we sent back just and updating some of the recommendations that came from our department heads. And so back in August, I presented this to you. And at that time, we were waiting for the county to go live on the new software for HR before we went live with this, but because we postponed that a little bit, it'll be easier now for us just to go ahead and adopt this policy. It will go in effect January 1st. The new software, right now we're planning on that going in effect at the same time, so these things will coincide so we can go ahead and build the software to match the policies that will be changing. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Just briefly again, you've seen these before. Hopefully this will work. These are the chapters in the policy. There's 22 chapters. As you see, I'll just briefly go through each one of these. Of course, we have to have definitions of what is included. One of the key parts when we discussed this with you earlier in the year, last year, was we want to make sure this is very employee friendly. And so we worked on policies to make sure that we had work-life integration, that it had some things that made balancing our work and our personal lives easier. And so there are some things that we probably have already been doing because of COVID, some flex time and some telecommuting, but we never really had good policies in place. And so we've gone through and codified that with some policies to help us with career planning and health and wellness, and then helping our employees to get some time if they want to be involved in community engagement. Of course, we believe in orientation for our employees, has responsibilities for HR and for each of the departments. We definitely believe that we need to work on educating and developing our employees. It's a lot cheaper for us to train employees than it is to have a revolving door. So we want to make sure we put some policies in place, and we've added in that education assistance program, which we've kind of had before, but this kind of formalizes that. And so we had put some money in the budget to address that. We're not sure what that will look like, but how much we need, because we're not sure of the need yet, but we'll have a policy in place to help guide us on that. Of course, with compensation, we have to be competitive. We did a pay and compensation study a year ago, or just over a year ago. We want to make sure we remain competitive, which, as Alison brought up, with the COLA, we should remain competitive because we look at the market. So we're in good stead with the compensation right now. Looking also at how we pay and how we reclassify positions. One of the issues that we really had to work on was leave currently salaried employees don't accrue any leave, they can take as much as they want. And we want this to kind of put everybody on leave. Now, the problem is we were the outlier. If you look at leave, how other counties are bigger and smaller than us, how they handle leave. Some do annual leave, some do sick. We're the only one that does both, and it's confusing. And so we'd like to come together and just switch from having both back to annual and sick leave. This is what the proposal is. The hours, there's the before 2017, the current, and then what the proposed is. Of course, within the resolution that you look at is how we convert leave. That's kind of confusing, and so we put that right in the resolution. If you look at the resolution, it explains how we convert people. And hopefully we addressed everybody we think we have, but this is what we codified in the resolution to make sure that's clear, how we're switching leave from PTO to annual and sick. Those who had frozen leave, those who were on EIB, which is an old form of sick leave. But there's an issue which we've discussed is that salaried employees before this time didn't have leave. And so how do you give them leave to start with because they've been here a while? And the discussion that we had was to do 1.5 years time the hours that they would have accrued based on how long they would have been with the county. So they get accrued different hours based on how long they've been with the county. And so that will front load them some, those that haven't been on leave before. This is some of the other conversion. Oops, I think I'm going the wrong way. The other issue was on holidays. Our system has been kind of convoluted and confusing because how many days you have depends on how many hours you work per day. So some have 12 holidays, some have 15. It just depended on your hours. And so what we talked about is that employees will receive pay for non-worked holidays equal to their regular rate of time that they would have worked that day. So we work out we don't include the hours, just if you were gonna work that day, it's a holiday, you get paid for that. So, but what we had to do as well is we added in officially, we've kind of done this unofficially, the day after Thanksgiving now will be an official holiday, and then a half day on Christmas Eve will be a holiday as well. And so if you look back here, looking at the other counties, ours will be about 13.5 hours of holiday, so we'll be kind of right in the middle of that group. Then we talk about how we'll deal with benefits. Most of those are guided by the policy documents that we have, how we schedule employees, probation position changes, so we know how to handle promotions and demotions and reassignments and reclassifications. It's clarifying some of that language. Of course, with safety and accident reporting, how we'll handle accidents and who's responsible for what. Workers' compensation. The standards of conduct, ethics, conduct, and how we use mobile devices, how we use equipment, how we use our vehicles, tobacco-free environment, drug-free workforce, and then, of course, handling anything related to discrimination and harassment, the procedures for that. We also address social media, just the conduct that we expect, and there's some limitations, but it's very limited. And of course, at the end, there are some corrective actions that we have to handle, but we clarified some of the procedures because it was pretty onerous for us to, there was a point system that you had to count up, and this kind of does away with that point system. And then if we have to separate employment, the policy that will follow. And of course, we have a career service council that will help make sure that any employees that are grieved by an action have a board to listen to their grievance. So that's all I had. There were a couple questions that came up in an email today. There's one change that I would recommend, and Nathan, if you'd like to come up for just a second to address one of the other ones. And this was inadvertent, but I'll read it to you, and I want you to tell me what you think it means. So, it is the policy of the county to require an employee to take leave of absence to run for an elected seat on the county council. So, in order to run for your seat, you have to take a leave of absence. Now, if we count you as employees, which we do, you would have to take a leave of absence to run for your seat. So I would recommend we change that just a little bit. And so what I would recommend on that, this is in 13.16.1, it is the policy of the county to require an employee, except current county council members, that would exclude you, to take leave of absence to run for an elected seat on the Tooele County Council. That's one amendment that I would recommend.
Would it just be council or all the other elected
Just you.
officials as well?
This is just you. Yep.
Okay.
So
But
that's,
there might be some good if we just leave it the way that it is.
I didn't want to be that sneaky, so I replace all 5 of you every 4 years? No, that's not it.
No, we just have to take an annual leave of absence, right?
Yeah. And so there was another question about some purchasing and conflicts of interest, and I wanted Nathan, he looked at this as well, to make sure we were clear on this. And so Nathan, if you want to just kind of briefly discuss that.
I can, yes. So in section 13.3.2, it talks about purchasing and supervision. It's under our ethics standards. And so the question was raised, how do we make this so it's transparent to everybody? And one of the comments back was, unless a relationship and procurement are disclosed and approved by the council, then we can move forward. When you try to read the sentence, you all know that I'm against 70-word sentences, and if you don't, now you know, and this one is spot on to 70 words. And so you can't actually read it without understanding the parties that are involved. And so in this sentence, you have the county, you have an employee of the county, and then of that employee, you have an immediate family member, which means the employee's child, parent, or sibling. There's also a subcategory of that of a legal entity of an immediate family member that they have a financial interest in. So what this sentence says is, and when I read it, and this is how I interpret it, that a county employee cannot personally participate in the purchasing or supervision of any goods or services that immediate family member offers to the county, or that business of that immediate family member offers to the county. And so I think right now, the way it is just fine, but there was a concern that was raised. Right now, that employee just cannot have any say in an immediate family member's business relationships with the county.
Recusing themselves from any decision.
Essentially, I mean, it would be, if I was trying to get my wife's sewing business, to get the county to buy blankets for all the employees, I couldn't have any say in whether that happens or not. She could still get a contract and still win, if she had the best business, but I wouldn't be allowed to be the one who says, I'm awarding this contract to her or not. Or supervise her doing it.
And I think we're pretty careful about when we see issues that get close, we make sure you recuse yourself if there's a potential conflict, and you guys have been pretty good at letting us know and stepping back and recusing yourself. We want to make sure that we're transparent.
Okay,
Any questions on that?
council?
Any other questions broadly on the personnel policy? It will go into effect January 1st. It doesn't go into effect immediately. We made it January 1st go live, so that's the part of the resolution.
Okay,
Any questions? If not,
thank you.
thank you so much.
This one. Next discussion is the interlocal agreement with Lake Point and Tooele County. Michelle?
I'll give you a little bit of how we got here, and then Nathan will come up. He's done quite a bit of research and has been privy to some emails with Lake Point City that I have not been involved in. Chris Robinson has been doing development within Tooele County for many years, and he was one that had some projects that were still outstanding when Lake Point incorporated. When they incorporated, the ILA had a list of projects that the county was allowed or asked to continue processing, and his was on the list. He has 2 subdivisions that were coming up on a year timeline, and we notified Chris and said, you need to request an extension on these subdivisions or they will be null and void. He did go to Lake Point City Council prior to coming to the County Planning Commission and asked Lake Point City Council if they would be in agreement with the county issuing an extension for a year and continuing to process those subdivisions. Lake Point City, in an email to us, did state that they were willing to allow the county to continue moving forward with those subdivisions as long as we didn't change anything within the subdivisions, which has not been done. The Planning Commission made an approval to extend the subdivisions for 1 year with the condition that the council, the county council and the Lake Point City Council amend the ILA to extend it for that same time period to cover the subdivisions. It doesn't do the planning commission any good to grant a one-year extension on processing subdivisions if the ILA says after December 31st of 2023, county, we no longer want your services. So, and Nathan has a little bit more information for you. Do you have any questions of me?
Any questions, council? Thank you, Michelle.
And my recommendation would be to table this and allow the developer and Lake Point City Council to work out whether he continues to stay in the ILA or not.
Okay.
So
Nathan?
just a little more background, thank you, Councilman. So in the interlocal agreement, what was originally agreed upon was that approvals of land use applications shall otherwise be granted or denied based on the county codes, ordinances, regulations, and standards in place at the time the land use application was complete and filed. When I read this sentence, I see the part that Lake Point could have a say in was the approvals of the land use. And they had to follow the rules at that time. With Chris's subdivision, there was a title, section of our code that was in play at that time. And the approval happened, and he was following those rules. What this doesn't address is it doesn't address anything after the approval process. It doesn't address extensions. It doesn't address anything else that the Community Development Office actually does in their office. So that's kind of my first point that I want to make, because what has now happened is we have received email communications about essentially how there have been attempts to make a unilateral change to this agreement and impose different restrictions on the county. And so I want that before you guys, so you're aware that what we're trying to now work through is what actually happens with Chris's developments. There are statements saying that we've overstepped our bounds. The verbiage that was sent to us in an email says, and this is when the first extension was granted to Mr. Robinson, is that the council voted, meaning Lake Point City Council, voted last night to approve the extension of the plat recording to 1 year, and it is okay with the county to continue to work on this permit as long as there are no changes or plat amendments to the permit. When I read this as no changes to the permit and no amendments to the permit. That's really important, because when we switched our code, which is procedural and trying to give direction to Mr. Robinson on how he needs to interact with our community development department, there were no changes made to the permit and there were no amendments. Everything has remained the same except for the procedure that he needs to go through in the timelines, making it more clear for him. What had happened is we had switched code almost immediately. The next month, he was approved in October of 2022, and we switched code in November of 2022, which put us more in line with our state statutes. And so it's important that we, from my perspective, we've been working with Mr. Robinson to make sure that things are running smoothly for him. And we do have a few more things to get through. I can support the recommendation of tabling this. In my viewpoint, though, there are a few options that you could do if you don't want to table. You could approve the ILA as it is right now. The changes in the extension remove his 2 subdivisions. I'm not sure if there are others that were removed, but the rest of the language does say we're going to follow what is in Exhibit A. There's a list of subdivisions that we're going to approve. You could approve the interlocal agreement as a second option with the conditions that Mr. Robinson be allowed back into the interlocal agreement into Exhibit A. As a condition of your approval tonight, you could do that. You could table it until another time and allow Mr. Robinson to go and have his communications with Lake Point City again and try to work it out on that end, and then we could possibly come back and get this all worked out. And then again, this is just a contract. What it is they're asking for the county to continue those services, and whether you do or not, is completely up to you as well. And I would say that's the 4th option. It's probably the most nuclear and not what I would advise as we're trying to, continue to work in this valley, but it is an option for you. And so I would suggest tabling so we can have more time to consider and get down to the complete facts of what's before us.
So it's December 19th. I've heard that date proposed. Do we need to extend it longer? Could it go into the new year? Or do we have to have it done by December 19th?
This interlocal agreement expires on December 31st of this year. It would be better to do it before. Are we going to cut off services for the first 5 days of January if we needed to come back on January 5th? No, right? We're going to keep continuing to provide the services that are outlined in the agreement is what I would assume.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. This will bring up discussion of COG recommendations, third quarter sales tax, corridor preservation funds. We've had extensive review of this, legal opinions, and I know that our auditor has worked tirelessly on this also, along with the council. And I know that Councilman Wardle and Councilman Thomas have worked on this extensively with some of the concerns that came up. With that, is there any other discussions that we have that you have in your packet? The recommendations.
Mr.
Councilman
Chairman,
Wardle?
just to walk through the recommendations. So this time, the COG came to us and proposed a change in how we award money. They proposed that we give money out of third quarter sales tax, which is something that we've done consistently throughout the years. This year, the proposal was to take money out of the corridor preservation funds, and it's Title 72 of the state code, I believe, in which it says that those funds can be applied for and used for maintenance for cities and be granted that way. So in dividing up the two, the third quarter preservation fund, or the third quarter funds, and the corridor preservation funds, what we're looking at is that in voting on the preservation funds, when it comes before us, that Rush Valley has asked for $284,000 for shoulder and burrow ditch upgrades. Vernon has asked for updating Larson Lane and Yates Road. And the agreement is that there will be $200,000 for that, and then a $200,000 grant to be used through 2027 to get additional funding to help that to go further. Stockton has asked for $382,450 for chip and crack seal throughout the town streets. And then we are working on the Burmester Road grant, which is a federal grant that we have to improve Burmester Road at $383,700. That brings the total of that amount to just over $3.6 million. If you take out, when we look at the total amount of projects, well, let me give you total amount of projects. In third quarter preservation, Tooele City has requested Drew Bay Road improvements from Vine Street, correct, to the Drew Bay Road to Pine Canyon Road. That will be a $2.1 million project. We will be using over the next couple of years in working with Representative Malloy's office to work with Urda City, Lake Point City, and Stansbury, and extending and improving Drew Bay Road all the way through the corridor, and we will be requesting funds for that. Tooele City, though, if they go to request those funds, it would be 4 to 5 years before that build could occur, so we're recommending that that be granted. Grantsville City has requested $350,000 for Nygren Street safety surface improvement, and Lake Point has asked for $63,000 for a master transportation plan, which next year we'll be asking all communities to have a master transportation plan and roads plan if they're going to be asking to use granted money. That total for both funds is $4,027,184. Just by way of where we've been the last 3 years. In 2021's budget, we allocated $393,000 and change. In 2022's budget, we allocated $2.7 million and change. And in the 2023 budget, we allocated almost $2.7 million in those budgets for projects that can be done, which brings, over the course of the last 4 years, a total of $9,873,730 that has been allocated for direct road improvements in the counties and in the cities and the counties, for rebuilds, for maintenance, which is an unprecedented investment. And we look forward to continuing to work to improve our transportation corridors, to improve the public access through those corridors in all the different types of transportation. And so that will be the recommendation for tonight that will be coming forward.
Any questions? Any questions or comments, council? Seeing none?
Just like to make a comment that shows the commitment to teamwork, value of the cog of what we do. There were some tough questions asked back and forth, but as you look back over time, the county's been supportive and working with the municipalities, and the municipality's been great to work with the county, and we want to see that still maintained. So it's a good thing, good cooperation. So let's move this forward.
Okay,
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Councilman Wardle. Any other comments or questions?
I've got some.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Hoffman.
This, and I think I've been the one that's been the holdup here because of my concerns about the amount of money that, and percentages regarding Vernon. John, it's nothing personal, but I'm gonna run through a variety of different numbers here for you, okay? And figures and stuff. Starting with property tax rates throughout the county. Okay, these go back to 1997, so I've got 26 years of records here. Vernon has the lowest property tax of all municipalities in the county at 0.00405. Okay, the next lowest is Rush Valley at 0.00565. That's 28.3% higher. And they have raised, both of those municipalities have raised their taxes one time in the last 26 years. Tooele County is about double your tax rate, 0.00842. And in that 26 years, Tooele County has had 9 rate hikes. Grantsville City's property tax rate is at 0.001294. Okay, 320% higher than Vernon's. Tooele City's tax rate is 0.002270, 560% higher than Vernon's. Stockton's town property tax rate is 0.002467, 609% higher than Vernon's. Wendover City's is 0.00287, 709% higher than Vernon's. Okay, so when I started looking at some of these things, and then I looked at how much we've already given Vernon, and then how much you guys bring in, okay, you guys make up 0.385% of the population of this county, 0.385%, so less than 0.4% of the population of this county. You guys brought in less than $2,400 in third quarter sales tax revenue, okay? Of all of that's collected, that's equivalent to 0.1% of all that's collected, okay? We've already given you $400,000. Of all the money that we've paid out, that is 18.29% of what has been paid out. Now, if we give you any more, whether it's $200,000 or $400,000, I did it on $200,000. If we were to give you another $200,000 and you're still collecting less than $2,400, that's 250 years before you're breaking even. So what year was it 250 years ago? 1773. We weren't even a country yet. So that is what has, I think I've been the reason for the hang-up because of some of these issues. And so I'm having a hard time swallowing giving you more money. And I've expressed these concerns to all of the other council members, and I'm still not sure what I'm going to do. So, in my opinion, if you don't raise property taxes, don't come back for more money. because everybody else is making up for you. Now, granted, I understand that your residents are also buying in Tooele City and stuff, so, probably we could add another percent, a couple tenths of percentage points to what is coming from virgin residents, but it's not near what you've already gotten, okay? So that is has been my hang-up, and I think that's been the cause of this whole delay, is because when I started going through this, I just thought, this just doesn't make sense to do this, okay?
Thank you, Councilman Hoffman. Let's move on to the number C, 5C, MOU between Tooele County and the Tooele Technical College. Jess Clifford.
We've enjoyed an agreement and MOU with the county. All right. Thank you. We've had an agreement, an MOU in place with the county for the last 5 years to support our SBDC in the work that we do to help develop small businesses and entrepreneurialism. And we're very appreciative of that. This year marks the end of that agreement, and so we are proposing that agreement be renewed for an additional 5 years until 2027. The agreement that we've proposed has no changes in it in terms of the obligations on Tooele Tech or on the SBDC. We propose the same services and the same service that we've been giving. The only changes that are in this agreement is that we have asked for an increase in the financial support that we get from the county. I want to mention that this is the same proposal that we have made to Tooele City and to Grantsville City and to USU Extension, and they have accepted those. We are asking for $20,000 a year as opposed to the $15,000 that we've been operating under. That accounts for increased costs that we're experiencing now, but there's also some projection in that to try to foresee the next 5 years. And looking at the last 2 that we've been through, I don't know how you really do that, but we feel that we're going to need to ask for that support from our local partners. We're also seeing that money from the state through the SBDC Utah is plateauing, and we're told through our legislative contacts that money will be capped, at least for the time being. And so we're kind of looking at that. We're looking at the increased volume that we have in service and trying to find ways to also balance that. So really there's no surprises here other than we are asking for that increase, and we're assuming that Manager Welch will sign since we didn't have a county manager the last time we did this. So any questions at all?
Council, any questions for Jess?
I think that, just a comment, Jess, having you here last week and showing us the economic impact was tremendous, and that the service that's provided at Tooele Tech and with the SBD, Small Business Center, the SBC, and throughout the whole process was absolutely amazing. It really is a place where you can go in and you can have an innovation center for businesses to grow out of. And so thank you for all you do.
Thank you. We promise to make every penny count.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Council, look to adjourn work meeting.
So moved.
So moved, second.
We are adjourned.
I don't think we have to vote for it.